Gunshots echo in the dark hallway. 3 men fall, another reload. A body hits the floor, breathing, heavy, controlled. The room smells like gunpowder and blood. Someone whispers in fear, "Who did this?" The answer travels through the criminal underworld like electricity. One name, John Wick. The man nobody could reach for 5 years. The man who disappeared. The man who only returned when something precious was taken from him. And that is the paradox of power. The man who was never available became the most feared presence in the room. But the psychology of this story is not about violence. It is about availability and how the moment you become too easy to reach, the world slowly begins to forget your value. Now rewind the story, not to a battlefield, not to an assassin, but to something far more common. A person who always replies instantly. A person who never says no. A person who is always there. Psychologists describe this behavior as a pattern driven by emotional conditioning, the deep belief that acceptance must be earned through constant availability. People begin to overgive their time and attention in order to maintain connection and avoid rejection. At first, it feels like kindness. You respond immediately. You rearrange your schedule. You show up every time. You become reliable, dependable, available, and the world praises that. But human psychology hides a brutal rule. Scarcity creates value. In marketing, this principle is used everywhere. Limited stock, last chance, offer ends tonight. Because when something becomes rare, people suddenly want it more. Now imagine the opposite. Unlimited access, unlimited attention, unlimited availability. Slowly, people stop chasing, not because you lost value, but because your value became predictable. The human brain works through shortcuts. Psychologists call these heuristics, mental shortcuts we use to judge importance and value quickly. When something is constantly present, our brain automatically assumes it will remain there. No urgency, no fear of losing it, no emotional tension, and attraction, whether in friendships, relationships, or respect, requires tension. Remove tension, and interest fades. This is where the contrast becomes powerful. Look at John Wick. Before the first movie begins, he disappears from the criminal world for years. No one sees him. No one hears from him. No one can contact him. He becomes a myth, a ghost. And when he finally returns, the reaction is immediate. Fear, respect, panic. Because scarcity builds legend, silence builds presence. Researchers analyzing the character of John Wick note that his actions are driven by trauma and emotional loss. Yet he maintains strong control over his behavior through calculated decisions and moral codes. He does not act impulsively. He appears when necessary and disappears again. That psychological distance creates power. Now return to the overly available person. Imagine 2 scenarios. Person A replies instantly, always free, always ready, always waiting. Person B has a full life, goals, work, purpose. They reply later. They choose carefully where their time goes. Which one feels more valuable? Most people instinctively feel drawn to the second, not because they are arrogant, but because their life already has direction. They are not orbiting other people. They are moving forward, and people are drawn to motion. But here is the painful part. People who are overly available rarely start that way. It usually begins with fear, fear of losing someone, fear of disappointing people, fear of being forgotten. So they give more, and more, and more, until one day they realize something painful. They were always present in everyone else's life, but nobody was fully present in theirs. This moment feels like betrayal, but it is actually awakening. Think about the moment in John Wick's story when everything breaks. A small event, a dog, a symbol of the last connection to his wife. When that is taken from him, the quiet man returns. Researchers analyzing the character note that his journey is not simply revenge, but a psychological response to grief, trauma, and identity loss. Pain awakens purpose, loss awakens action, and transformation begins. The same transformation happens in real life, not with guns, but with boundaries. The overly available person learns a new sentence. No. At first it feels uncomfortable, almost guilty, but slowly something shifts. They stop responding instantly. They protect their time. They build their own goals, their own mission, their own identity. And suddenly, people begin to notice them again, not because they became distant, but because they became intentional. John Wick never begged for attention. He never explained himself. He never chased validation. His presence alone carried weight, because the world knew something important. He only appeared when it mattered, and that is the final psychological lesson. Being unavailable is not arrogance, it is clarity. Your time is your life. Every minute you give away is a minute of existence you never get back. So stop trying to be available to everyone. Instead, build a life so meaningful, so focused, so alive, that your presence becomes rare. And when you finally walk into the room, like John Wick entering a battlefield, people will feel something immediately. Not because you demanded respect, but because your life already earned it. And the quietest power in the world is the power of someone who no longer needs to be everywhere to matter.